earth could explain that, the persistence of that kind of gender discrimination in our nations, in our world? What's going on? It's pretty hard to puzzle through, isn't it? Well, part of it is unconscious bias. The fact that when our brains recognise a human being and categorise, that's a woman, that's a man, our culture puts a whole lot of baggage on it. That culture is in our brain, it's an unconscious bias, we don't even know it's there, but we roll with it. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, Harvard here in Boston, a great institution of learning, did a case study where they've got a group of Harvard students, men and women, divided them into two groups, mixed male and female groups, and asked them to read a case study about a business person. And all of the facts were the same, except one group read the story as if it was about a woman. Jane, the businesswoman, does this, that and the other thing. And the other group read the same story as if it was about a man, John, doing this, that and the other thing. And at the end, they polled the two groups and asked them, would you go and work for this business person? What do you think of this business person? And both the men and the women scored the woman business leader more lowly and described her as unlikable, which was a word that had not been used about the man. Smart people at Harvard, not historic gender bias, not older people who have lived through different times, that unconscious bias whispering in their brains. Now, more evidence about this kind of unconscious bias comes from an interactive study of 14 million entries on a website that you have here in the US called Rate My Professor, where college kids get online and put what they think about who is teaching them. 14 million entries were studied. And when that huge sample was looked at, the researchers found that a male academic was disproportionately likely to be described as a star or a genius. A female academic was likely to be described as bossy, disorganised, or my personal favourite, ugly. Now, let's make the really unkind assumption that this has somehow revealed to us an underlying truth of the academic workforce in the United States. Now, if we did make that unkind assumption, we would run into a study from North Carolina. There, the university did a very smart thing. There was an online course where students never met the teacher. So they got one person to teach the course, and to half the students they pretended to be a man, and to half the students they pretended to be a woman. And, you guessed it, when students were asked at the end about the quality of the teacher, they rated the female teacher more lowly than the male, even though they were exactly the same person. Now, what's going on there? Why is that happening? Well, I think we are all the inheritors of these biases, unconscious in our brain, and they sort of tell us, if we really crudely distill it down, they tell us, well, we kind of expect men to lead and women to appear. You know, men to be judged on their actions, women on what they look like. We expect men to be commanding, whereas we want women to be nurturing. That's the stereotype in our brain. And so when we see a woman who is leading or commanding, it's fairly easy to conclude that she's given up on the nurturing, that she's really probably pretty ruthless, pretty hard-boiled, hard to get along with. I bet she's a bit of a, and I'll let you supply the word that's often used at the end of that sentence, but I think you know what word I'm talking about.